me start off with welcoming everyone to the League of Goddesses interview series. This platform is for sharing insight into the tools, methods, and thought processes of some of the most badass women, and then every once in a while we throw a few men in there, but in the world, and what they use to attain their dreams. Our amazing guests will share their intimate, tried and true practices that have taken them decades to create and compile to help you propel yourself to attaining your biggest dreams. This is the real shit that I wish I had known sooner. Today's guest is founder of Beverly Hills Publishing. She created her company to deliver a full service, 7-star publishing and marketing experience to thought leaders who are ready to publish their book, create a movement, and share their vision with the world in 90 days. She combines a savvy understanding of marketing, publishing, visibility, and profitability to help authors, entrepreneurs, and experts gain engaged audiences in extremely competitive markets so that their books become meaningful legacies. And now that I've told you about her accomplishments and credentials, let me share with you why I am personally ecstatic to have Andrea here. I actually met Andrea through the League of Goddesses new members wine night. And immediately upon meeting her, I knew she was a badass. Granted, she had made it there through a mutual friend who had kind of told us a little bit about each other. But when we finally had the chance to meet, it was like fireworks. I felt like she was my twin, except with blonde hair. And once I got to know a little bit more about her, I knew that I had to share her with you guys because she has so much phenomenal information and knowledge. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Andrea here. Thank you so much for joining us. I am super excited.
Wow, what an incredible introduction. I love that we are definitely twins. I feel like we are sisters from another lifetime. There's so much we have in common, and I'm so excited to be on your show and to share with your goddesses.
Oh, I am ecstatic too, because I know you have so much to offer, and it just makes me so excited when I meet another woman who is passionate about giving and sharing and uplifting her fellow women. So it makes me super excited to have you here. And I'm really honestly so anxious to just dive right into your awesomeness. And instead of presuming anything, go ahead and just start asking questions. So if that is good for you, that's what we'll do.
Let's do it.
Wonderful. Okay, so my first question is going to be, can you tell me what you are most passionate about either teaching or sharing with other entrepreneurs?
I have to say that I am most passionate about thought leadership. I see thought leadership as the cutting edge of where the industry, the conversation, and even human evolution is going. And when you're a thought leader, you are brave and courageous enough to go to that very last edge where no one else is showing up. And those rare and special human beings who say, not only am I going to be on the edge of evolution, but I'm going to reach back and pull the rest of humanity with me. That's what I'm most excited about, being surrounded by thought leaders, being in the conversation of thought leadership, and how to publish books, create websites, and get the attention that a true thought leader deserves.
Girl, you just gave me goosebumps. I feel like I'm here all by myself. It's like, oh, it's my Andrea time, and I get to learn. This is phenomenal, and I think that it's such a need because there are so many visionaries and thought leaders that I feel like sometimes it doesn't click. It's like, oh, how do I make this stuff stick, right? I've got all of these amazing ideas and I want to share this information with others, but how do I make it stick? And I feel like that's where you're just like, I know, come here and let me tell you. So can you tell me, how did you gain expertise in this area?
Yes, well, I am a thought leader myself. So I have been writing books for over 15 years. And I've been an entrepreneur this is actually going to be my 16th year as an entrepreneur.
And you started when you were 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Right. Of course. That's what we're sticking to that story. Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome. That's when I started too.
Yeah. I was 26 and I had a nervous breakdown in corporate America. And I didn't know at the time that it was my soul calling me to push myself out of my comfort zone and to follow my dreams. It was crazy, scary. Everybody thought I was absolutely crazy. And especially because I love competition, I love competitive markets. So I have built thought leadership in fitness and weight loss, which is one of the most competitive markets online or in the world. And now I am a thought leader in publishing for books and marketing and publicity. And so I myself am a thought leader, which is why I'm so passionate about it. Because if I didn't understand all the small private choices that you have to make in order to show up to be a thought leader, then I wouldn't be able to support thought leaders in the way that I do when we get publicity and when we go public. It is those quiet moments when no one is watching. Those are the choices that where you decide, am I really going to go for it, or am I going to play small? Am I going to hide? Am I going to be safe? And I will tell you that this global shift that has occurred, it's not an accident. The thought leaders are needed more now than ever. And so I'm here to support other thought leaders in trusting their vision and going for it.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to stop saying that because I just keep getting goosebumps while you're talking, and I'm like, oh yes, this is amazing. So that being said, regarding the thought leaders, what advice or tip would you share with us today that you believe just makes the biggest difference for them? What is it? Because you're talking about all these little choices and things. What's the biggest one? I know there's probably quite a few, but if you could only share one, what would it be?
The biggest tip, advice I could give for a thought leader is to trust your vision. Trust the intuition that is coming through your heart, through your third eye. It's the vision that is created for you and only you. And no one else is going to understand it. And so you have to not only be okay with no one understanding you and your vision, but you actually need to see it as a sacred gift and a sacred privilege that you are receiving this message from somewhere else. Because if we had more support for our visionaries on the planet, then I believe that all of humanity's problems would be solved. For every problem that is on the planet right now, there is a visionary who has the solution. However, our society and our culture does not support those visionaries in expressing their vision. They're ostracized, they're labeled, they're told they're crazy. I mean, we could get into it, but more people are on pharmaceuticals today than ever in the history of our society. So what's happening? It's not that the human mind is becoming more and more crazy. It's that we're actually opening up to more and more higher channels of consciousness. And the people who are receiving these signals need to have a safe place in order to express their vision. And that is my commitment to the planet, that I want to change our culture and support the visionaries. But until our culture and society changes, the visionary needs to take 100% responsibility for the vision that is coming through them.
That sounds just like, got it. That being said, since you're saying, hey, this is your responsibility, we wish that we had, this world that just supported you and accepted you instead of telling you you're crazy and you can't do it. And I mean, those are the things that entrepreneurs get told every day, right? And then if you're an entrepreneur and you are also the visionary, which usually those kind of go hand in hand, but sometimes they don't, then what would be, and I know I told you only one tip, but what would be your second best tip for helping that person get through those tough times? Because when people are saying those things to you, it can be a beatdown. So what have you done? And then what would you recommend?
Well, it's part of the journey. It is part of the hero's journey, or every great story or movie you ever watch. There is always that internal struggle of the hero or the heroine. And so when you recognize that this is your path and this is your journey, you need to seek and find others who are also on their path of awakening to their highest calling. Because we surround ourselves with people who are like us and who make us feel comfortable. And so if you're surrounded by people who are playing small or complaining or not sharing their gifts, and frankly, they're wasting their time on the planet, then you're going to become like them. And so you need to find others who are going for their dreams, who are choosing to see the positive, and who are committed to sharing their gifts. Because now you will become like them. You will start to think like them. You will start to talk like them. You will have access to more and more people. I mean, that's how I met you, Alicia. We want to surround ourselves with other people. And if you are in a constant struggle with the people around you, you need to just tune them out. I spent many years alone in isolation before I found my mentor, who opened up a world that brought me new visionaries and other entrepreneurs and other people who expanded my vision. So if you are that person who has the vision, you want to surround yourself by others who believe in your vision. I say, I want to surround myself with people who have a bigger vision for me than I can even see for myself. Because now you can be stretched and be pulled instead of being the one who's always having to fight and keep your vision alive.
I like that. That is such a unique, blessing to be able to be next to people who can see further than you, to be able to look at you and be like, oh my God, you're amazing the way you are, but I see so much potential. So that is a phenomenal thing to have in your life. And I'm totally getting off my norm, but you're just bringing up all these amazing things to talk about. And I feel like it's really worth diving into. So in those moments when you were alone and you didn't have that support system, what did you do to find those people that you're talking about? Maybe we can call them stretchers. It's just like they stretch you and they expand you,
Yeah.
those expansive people. What did you do to find those and make sure that you got into their presence?
Amazing. I love this question. So I am a self-made entrepreneur, and I don't come from money. I've never had a wealthy patron or a benefactor. And so everything I've created by investing in myself. I am passionate about books. As a publisher, yes. And I mean, maybe it was my destiny to become a publisher, but I remember not being able to find anyone that I could talk to. But yet when I read books, that's what reminded me of my truth, and that I was on my path, and that there are other brave souls who have gone through the trials and tribulation of awakening to their gifts. And it was through books that I really accessed my first mentors. And then whenever I was surrounded by other mentors and visionaries, they saw that I've educated myself. I have a clear voice of how I speak and how my conviction and my values. And I had been practicing. I had been practicing for when the audience shows up. And I think that's a huge mistake that visionaries make, is that they hold their gifts inside of them until they're validated, until they wait for the external world to say, yes, you're special. But the reality is that you need to practice and you need to prepare for that moment when you are face to face with someone who can change your life, or invest in your company, or become a business partner, or get you the cover of a magazine, which is what happened to me. And so people only see the big boom and they think, wow, you're an overnight success. But no one realizes that it has been the decades of reading, clarifying my thoughts, writing in my journal. I've written more words that will never be seen than anything I've ever published. And so it's the practice. It is the practice of your life. This is the preparation. And then when the audience comes, now your voice is clear, your strength and your confidence is ready for your vision to be shared.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you say it that way, I can see that same path in my own life. And especially I very much believe that when the student's ready, the teacher arrives. There's times in our lives where we might just not be ready for it. And although we might want it, there might be more work that needs to be done inside before you can have that person involved in your life. So I think there's a ton of truth to what you said. Thank you for sharing that. And then also all of your other tips. And I'll try to rein myself back in and save all of the other million questions I have for another conversation, so I can respect your time. But
this will not be our first and last conversation. Just
thank God. Thank God. Okay, so now that our listeners have heard some of your tips, what would be your first recommendation for them implementing the advice that you just shared? So I feel like we have a lot of women, especially in our league, who are busting their asses and trying to get traction. They're putting in that work, but it's not easy. And I know that you know that. So those hard years of work that I put in, that you put in, and even now we're still putting it in. It doesn't just magically disappear. But I think as you get better and better and grow, it becomes so much more enjoyable and it doesn't really feel like work like it used to. But what would be your advice for implementing the things you just shared with us?
Well, I believe that to be a thought leader, you need to be great at a few skills. The first is that you truly need to be on the cutting edge. So be bold and be daring. And I say rule number one, do not be boring. Okay? If you are boring, then you will see a slump in your business activity. People aren't going to be calling you to get your ideas or your thoughts. And we can take any example. I'm not political, but anybody who you're like, how could that person be getting so much attention? Whether you like them or you hate them, they're not boring. They have a point of view. They're putting themselves out there. This is what captures the attention of the media and the market. And so really have the guts to be bold, to claim the spotlight is what I say, is stop denying the spotlight. Women have this problem with perfectionism, and they believe that once they're perfect, now the spotlight will show up. That's not how it works. Grab the spotlight every chance you can get. Start speaking at a Rotary Club or a Toastmasters. We're in a virtual environment, but where can you join a community, a chat room? Start speaking your voice. Start speaking your truth. That's cultivating that practice of thought leadership. And as you begin to clarify your voice and your message, now you want to document it. So I do recommend that you get a book as soon as possible. And I remember when my mentor told me to write a book, this was in 2006. And he said, okay, you have to go write a book in order to be seen and separate yourself from all the other people who are competing in your industry. And I thought, I can't write a book. That's no way. I could barely write an email. But he said, you have to figure it out. You have to go for it. And I remember that fear and thinking, no one's going to read it. I'm going to sound so stupid. And I remember the only person who's going to buy it is my mom. That's it. But then I told myself, okay, if I can help one person, is this worth it for me to overcome my own ego? Can I put this out there? If it just helps one person. And that was what allowed me to release the first book. It was so far from perfect. It was so far, I mean, what I can do now as a publisher, it's light years beyond that first book. But that didn't stop me from putting it out there. And then what happened was I started to get emails back from people all around the world. And they would say, your book changed my life. There was one email I remember getting that they said, I was going to kill myself. I was on the last edge and I found your book and it gave me hope to go one more night. And then I found my love for myself and my complete life has changed. And so I think about that. I'm like, what if I never wrote that book? You know, that one person who found the message at that particular time, isn't that really what it's all about? It really is about service. It has nothing to do with you. And so get your book out there. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be amazing New York Times bestseller. Just get it out there, help people, serve people, because what that's going to do is it's going to feed your soul. It's going to feed your spirit, and it's going to lower that ego expectation of perfectionism.
Mm. When you said lots of women have an issue with that, I was like, wait, what? Wait, who does? Oh, girl, I have spent many years dealing with that. And you said it right. It's your ego. It's just ego, 100%. And it's done nothing. I wouldn't say anything good ever comes out of it. It just stunts what should already be out there. And then it quickly turns from perfection masked in you want excellence to then, you finally maybe get it out there and you think it's perfect, and then you're insecure about it because you're like, oh shit, maybe I didn't do it perfect and I thought I did all this work. And it's just, you're so right. Get out there, give it your best shot, and just let the universe take care of it. And like you said, I mean, what would have happened if you hadn't had the courage to do that and that person hadn't gotten a hold of your book? So what a great recommendation to just go ahead and do it. Now that we've heard that your recommendations on those tips, can you take us to so far, of course, there are many more I'm sure to come, but like the apex moment of your career so far?
Wow. The apex moment of my career. Yes, absolutely. So I started writing books in 2006. And I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to reach people with my message, and I wanted to have a meaning and purpose. I figured out early on that just money without soul was actually more damaging than if I didn't have any money at all. And so I decided right then and there, I am going to create a business of meaning. I am only going to create a product and a service that I can put my heart and soul into. And so by writing these books, every time I would write a book, I would get free advertising, the publicity, people would want to interview me, TV, this was all this great advertising that was even more effective than if I was taking out an ad, because they were talking about how amazing I was and they were interviewing me. And so I just kept writing more and more books. That was just kind of my thing. It became my marketing approach. It became my commercial. And so every time I would write a book, I would put it up on social media. This thing called YouTube came along. It was back in 2007. And it was like, what's YouTube? Maybe I should put some videos out there. Well, flash forward, I have over 10 million views on YouTube, and it just happened to be the right time, the right place. And I tell everybody this. I'm like, you have no idea when the next YouTube is around the corner. Things are shifting every 6 months on the internet. Be innovative, be daring, be bold, go for it. Because that perfect synergy of me publishing with the social media, and then the media started to pick it up, and they were like, wow, look at all of her views. But I was more than an influencer. So there's an influencer that just has an audience, but I was a thought leader because I'm publishing books. And so the day that Women's Health and Fitness magazine put me on their 21st cover of it's their 21st anniversary edition. They put me on the cover. And when they told me that I was getting the cover, First of all, it was like, whoa, I'm 37 in the photos, which to be a fitness model above 25 is like unheard of. So to be 37 on the cover of the #1 fitness magazine in the world was an incredible feat. But more than that, they said, Andrea, you're a thought leader. We want to interview you. Your ideas about health and women's health and your philosophy, what you're writing in your books makes you special. You're not just an influencer. And so I have the magazine. Someday I'll show you the actual magazine. But they gave me the interior cover. And they said, we've never done this before, but they put me on the cover and then they interviewed me as a global thought leader in women's health.
Wow.
And that was the moment where I realized, oh my goodness, if I wouldn't have written that first book, and if I wouldn't have kept sharing my message with the world, I would never have achieved that kind of status. And that solidified my authority. You know, no one argues if I'm a health expert, right? It's like, oh, have you seen my cover?
Yeah.
And so that level of credibility and authority, you cannot buy. It is only from being a thought leader and making a difference with your voice and with your ideas.
That is phenomenal. I think that would probably be an apex moment for any woman I know. So first of all, congratulations. That's phenomenal. I can imagine that your mentor was just like, I told you. Are you still friends with your mentor, or are you like a friend-tor now with them?
Yes, he's become like my brother. We have had so many experiences in life, and you know, I've actually moved on to another mentor. I have a new mentor in my life who found me about 1.5 years ago. And just like what you said, when you are ready, the teacher appears. I mean, he truly found me. And he's taken not only my gifts with marketing and business, but there's an alignment of my higher self. And I could cry thinking about it, but it is now, I'm no longer in the struggle of fear or a paradigm of scarcity, or there's not enough. And a lot of entrepreneurs are addicted to the hustle. And I was so addicted to that hustle. That's where I got my self-esteem. I was like, oh, I can survive no matter how hard it is. Look at how I can compete in the most difficult markets. You know, look, I'm an internet marketer and I'm a woman surrounded by all these men. I'm like, I put myself in all these situations where I thought that the hustle was what made me strong. And it was only from him helping me wake up to realize that the hustle was actually keeping me stuck. And letting go of the hustle, it was the hardest thing that I ever did. But once I let go of it, now there's just a flow. It's a flow of abundance. I would say, you know, meeting you and being here today, it's a flow. It comes effortlessly when you're able to let the struggle and the hustle go.
I feel like you're just hitting home for, at least for this woman, right and left, because I understand that hustle, and I understand, and I don't know how you were, but a lot of where we got originally, or at least for myself, I feel like I got there with that, right? Because you were willing to fight harder, work longer. You just know how to take things and create what you need out of it, right? Versus letting things just happen to you. But you're right, that becomes so addictive, and there's a reward for it, right? So every time you hustle and you accomplish something, you get that reward feeling of, I did it. But it was all struggle for me. And it sounds like that's kind of what you were saying too. It was a fight. Everything was a fight. And I feel like within this last year, which is really odd that you're experiencing this too, there's another way. And it terrified me. I don't know if it terrified you when you were like, wait a second, I have to let this go. And wait a minute, I can accomplish all of this and still be peaceful. It doesn't have to be full on battle all the time. So I don't know, do you connect with that at all? Did it feel like that you're laying down your shield and your sword and you're like, are you sure?
We need to start a hustle recovery group or something.
I love it. Yes, because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say I just turned it off overnight, and I'm not going to say it's not still a struggle for me at times, but being present and allowing the work that I've done and to trust in that and live in the here and now, I feel like the word flow is a good one. Things just flow smoother, and they're even more orchestrated and beautiful than I could have done it if I had hustled and forced it into being, right? So I think that,
and I can give a real world example about it, because I know if you're watching this video, you could be like, well, what do you mean not
yeah,
hustle?
there you go.
That doesn't mean I don't wake up. I mean, yes, I wake up at 5:30, 6 a.m. every morning. And in the past, if I was on a deadline, or if I had a client who was late on their payments, or there was something that was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? I would have woken up early, gotten straight to work, drank a ton of coffee, gone, stayed up as late as I needed to stay up. Sometimes I would drink wine, keep working. I mean, it was just this constant do whatever it takes because I'm the only person who can get it done mentality. Mm-hmm. Now, if something doesn't go the way that I think it should go, or if there's a deadline that is missed, or there's a client or a payment that hasn't been made, and I'm like, okay, I've got this team and I've got all these people who are now reliant on me. You know what I do now is I wake up early and I go to yoga and I meditate. And what is the most amazing thing is that through the process of self-care and just really tuning in to remember that we are infinite, there's really no rush. What are we rushing towards, right? It's like just, oh, this beauty of this moment, this body, this heart, this soul, this mind. What a gift to be alive. When I can get back to presence and gratitude, I'll walk into the office and things just have cleared out. And it's amazing. People think it's magic or alchemy. This is what the ancient teachings are about. It is about moving into a higher vibration of love and gratitude and service and acceptance. And that's what I'm witnessing and experiencing.
Doesn't it just give you a feeling of like expansion, right? And it's so inspiring to know, like, holy shit, I am not the end all be all. It doesn't always all rely on me. All it takes is that I'm in alignment, right? I'm present, I'm here, and I'm willing to move forward in love, joy, and peace versus force things into what I feel it needs to be. So I'm not gonna say I don't want women who are in that struggle where they're having to push and try so hard to discount what they're doing, because sometimes it is hard. The work is hard, but if you can get present, it becomes so much easier. It's not that the work, and I don't know how this is for you, but it's not that the work still isn't hard at times, but it's peaceful and it feels like it's flowing and it's smooth versus being forced and jammed. Does that sound right to you?
Absolutely. One of my mentor talks about effort versus struggle. And so the effort is the warrior intention. When you are an entrepreneur, a thought leader, a go-getter, a type A personality, you naturally have that inclination of motivation and movement. And so the effort is actually part of our identity, part of our essence, if you would. But the struggle is what's optional. The freaking out or the stress or the fear. I'll never forget the moment I said, I'm not going to let fear dictate my life anymore. I had a horrible divorce. I had built my empire up. We had a 5-story mansion in Malibu. We were this power couple. I got the cover of the magazine. And then he ended up having an affair with my bridesmaid and leaving me.
Well,
yeah. So it's in the book. I write about it. But like, it was a turning.
You do make a chapter.
That's a whole chapter. Exactly. But I went from this, okay, everything I ever wanted to everything collapsing, total annihilation. And I had to recover emotionally, financially, but most of all, I didn't trust myself. That was the hardest part, because this was the husband I chose. This was the best friend who I chose. And I began to worry, what if I don't make good decisions? What if I can't trust anyone? And so I went back to live with my mom in Texas, in Dallas, and she has a little spare bedroom with a bunk bed for my nephews to come and sleep. And I recovered in that bunk bed. And I would wake up every day just depressed and scared. And I remember being so afraid about, like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna get my life back and my life together? And there was a moment where I just said, you know what? This fear thing isn't helping anything. Like, the facts are the facts. The situation is the situation. Here we are. And I remember just in that moment saying, I am not going to let this fear have any control over me anymore. And it was a release. And even to this day, now when it comes back, if it's trying to come back, I'm like, I remember you were trying to convince me that you were productive in my mind, but you're not productive. You were wasting my energy and you were draining my life essence. And from that day forward, I've just released fear, and it's a way better way to live. It doesn't mean I don't show up and I don't give effort. It's just that there's not the fear and struggle attached to it.
I love that. There is such a difference between effort and struggle. And your mentor is smart person. I think you said he was a man, but smart man, because the effort, it's always good to give that effort and it feels good, right? And you know you're on the right path because things are clicking, but it's the struggle. I'm saving that one for myself. I'm like, oh, when you feel that it's a struggle, you've got it, right? That's when you have to pause, step back. Where's my ego getting involved? I love it. So effort versus struggle. Thank you so much for sharing that. So now we've kind of talked about your apex. Can you tell me, and you might have kind of touched it on it already, but what do you feel that you learned and maybe learned and experienced in that high level of attainment? What did you take from that? I know you said that there was a high and then there was a low, but I'm sure that you have some amazing things that when you look back, you know, hey, I got this knowledge there.
Absolutely. Well, I've been able to use everything that I've created with the brand in health and fitness and the 20 plus books that I've written for health and fitness. I realized through that crisis and really going deeper and saying, okay, what can I do to pull myself out of this pain and this misery and this frustration? And it was that I need to serve bigger. I need to give more. I'm not done as an entrepreneur. And as much as I love health and fitness, I feel like that body of work is done. 20 books on the subject, right? It's like, okay, now it's time for the new chapter. And so by wanting to support other thought leaders to get their message out by publishing their book, building their websites, getting publicity to come and share their message. This is now my way of, instead of just reaching the millions of people with my books and my message, which has been a gift, but now I get to be behind the scenes and I get to be supporting thought leaders to make a global impact and to start a movement, or even if it's just to share their gifts with the world, to write a book and release the book. That's like, it's a moment that I share with my clients. And when they become an author, their life is changed forever. They are now a published author for the rest of their life. And so everything that I took and have built and creating my own thought leadership, because that was really the biggest thing, is I was like, nobody else knows how to do this. Mm-hmm. Even the publishers don't know anything about marketing or publicity. They can maybe help you get a book in 2 to 5 years. But by that point, the market has already evolved. The market has already changed. And so we need to publish on the cutting edge of speed of digital light. We need to share our ideas with the market as the market is evolving. Otherwise, you're not a thought leader. You're a thought copier. You're
Right.
just copying what else everybody else is doing. And so the fact that thought leaders aren't publishing quickly and effortlessly, that disturbs me. That breaks my heart. And as I said in the very beginning, I believe that there is a solution to every one of humanity's problems. And so if I can be the support to publish the thought leader and get the solution out there, that's now what I've dedicated my life to. And this is the new version, the new chapter of being a publisher and helping other entrepreneurs and thought leaders to create the authority that I figured out how to create.
That is phenomenal. I feel like I want to write a book now. I'm like, oh, I know what I want to write about. I've never, I guess, thought about it the way that you just said. Hey, if you're on the cutting edge, why aren't you sharing? Because if you're not going to share it, first of all, why are you being given that gift? Because that's kind of sad. It's like, okay. And then if you're not going to share it quickly, then you're not a thought leader anymore. You're a copier. So that is an amazing way to put it. And I think that you have such an awesome chapter there, because I've heard people talking about it. And even myself, if I wanted to really write a book, I wouldn't even know where to start. And I think a lot of times with thought leaders and entrepreneurs, we're so busy, and I hate that word, but we're all busy doing our thing. And we forget that we need to give and we need to share. And this is an amazing outlet for doing that. So I'm so happy that you're there and able to help guide people who are ready for that experience, because to me, it sounds like probably the most efficient way to do it, which I love efficiency. Just like, oh yes, please, let's go about it this way and not make mistakes that somebody else already made and learned from. So what a lovely position and chapter for you to be in. I'm totally going to switch this up now, and I'm going to ask you about your childhood. I want to know, who was Andrea before the fame, the glory, the magazines, the 20 books? There's 22 books. 22?
I just published my 26th book.
Okay, 26. I'm so sorry. 26 books. So take me back to the beginning. Where did you grow up? We know it was in Texas, but what was your family like? How did you become you?
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, so I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and I am the middle daughter of 3 girls. And, I've always been different. I've always been really different than the rest of my family. I've always felt loved, but very misunderstood. And it wasn't their fault, they didn't know what to do with me, and whatever. So looking back on it now, it's like, well, we chose the parents we chose for exactly the reasons we needed to choose them. And I remember being a teenager, and my parents had issues with anger. My father has an alcohol addiction. There was violence and just a lot of unhappiness in my house. And when I became a teenager, I rebelled. I rebelled really big, and I started to run away, and my parents didn't know what to do with me. And so it was this like struggle of, no, I want my identity, and I don't respect you, versus they were now trying to like contain me. And so it was a really difficult time. It was really difficult. I will say that what I experienced in my childhood and adolescence, that's definitely where most of my karma was undone, because I had to go through so much pain. It was really, really difficult. Once I went to college, I was able to start venturing out on my own. I think my parents were like, okay, she's raised. Thank God, she's done. She's out of my house. So like, whatever. But that was also when I started to find personal development. I'm very blessed that I have had self-growth, personal development. I've been a yogi for 20 years. I've meditated for 20 years. And so I have been on this path of radical self-awareness. And it was in my mid-20s that I had all this anger towards my parents, especially my dad, and I blamed him for all the difficulty in my life, all the problems with men. And I remember being at a seminar, and they said that whoever you want forgiveness from, call them and ask for their forgiveness. And that was this, whoa, you mean why would I ask my dad for forgiveness? He's the one who owes me an apology. He's the one who screwed up my life. But I just was like, okay, I'm on this path. I am taking 100% radical responsibility. And so I called him and I said, Dad, will you forgive me will you forgive me for blaming you for everything that's ever gone wrong in my life? And he said in that moment, it's a phone call I'll never forget. He said, Andrea, he goes, you have done what I always wanted to do. I always dreamed of moving to California and being a writer. And you're doing what I never had the guts to do. And he had never said that to me. He had never shared any of that. But it was a switch. And now our relationship is, okay, we're just people. We're two humans. We're two souls. And he has just as much responsibility over my life as I have over him, or as we choose to give each other. And I am so grateful that I did that personal development work while my parents are still alive. If your parents aren't alive, you can still do it. You can still forgive them and ask for forgiveness for them. It's so counterintuitive, but it truly set me free. And I've had a great relationship with my parents ever since.
Wow. I can only imagine how that would feel from your position as the daughter, but then also as your father. What a bonding, whoa. And you probably didn't expect it either. I don't know how you prepare yourself for that one, but I bet you that was really impactful, and what a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it. I know that was really personal. And now I'm going to go even a little deeper. So can you tell me, and I think we're kind of leading into that, but what do you feel the hardest portion of your journey has been to overcome thus far?
Okay. The hardest part of this journey for me has been staying true to myself amidst society's stereotypes. And I have been judged and labeled my entire life. And you look a certain way, you have certain attributes, and people just put you into a box, and they assume that you are someone who they have some association with from somewhere else. And I believe that is part of my work on the planet, is to break out of stereotypical thinking, because that is what's keeping us locked in these boxes. And so staying true to who I'm choosing to be as a goddess, as a feminine, powerful woman. And yes, I have a masculine mind. I love math. I love science. I love business. I love marketing. I love data. I love numbers. I want every woman to stop saying they're bad at math. You have to stop saying that, because math is business. Math is wealth. Math are numbers. And so I love numbers. I love math. I love science. And I was just born with this logical mind, but I'm also artistic and creative. And so by having these particular gifts that don't fit into a box has been a struggle, because society, frankly, hasn't been ready. And you look back under people who have broken through, and they're on the cutting edge because they're different and they're special. And just because society doesn't put them in a box doesn't mean that they shouldn't stay true to who themselves. And I believe that addiction comes from the thought leader losing their sense of self. And so I've stayed true to myself. I've stayed true to my voice. I've stayed true to my vision and to what I'm here to create. The struggle has been that I'm a thought leader, which means that the cutting edge is the horizon that will never reach the end. And so I'm always on the edge, and it's tiring and it's exhausting. And there are days where I'm like, why can't society just wake up, and why can't we all be here yet?
Mm-hmm.
That's the journey, and it chose me. I didn't choose it, and I am in service of the message and the vision that's coming through me.
Yeah, and that's what you're here for. I'm like, oh, yes, I think that so much of the struggle that you're describing and telling me about is the thought leader, the feminine thought leader. I think that you're struggling with, you list all these attributes and you're like, well, they're male, male attributes. And I have said the same thing. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just more like a dude, and that's what it is, And as I've aged, become more present, and continued on my growth journey, what I've come to find is that these aren't male or female attributes. They've been categorized as that, but the world doesn't know what to do with us. They're like, what is this? We don't know what she is. We don't know what to do with her. We can't understand it. And she's got these emotions, and it's just been so intriguing for me to, and I'm sure you've witnessed this too, when you're in a world that's 99% full of men, they're kind of, first they're starstruck by you, like, what is this woman doing that thinks like me, but then acts like completely different? And they don't know what to do for, like, how to handle us. But as thought leaders, we're able to get a shock factor with that, right? And that's what helps catapult us forward, because they don't know. It's like, oh, we got you. Like, oh, look at this pretty shiny thing over here. And then bam, they don't even know we're gone and we've done it, right? But I feel that it's our job and responsibility to start helping the rest of the world understand what we as women really bring to the table. And that the things that we bring that we get sometimes criticized for, like, oh, she's emotional, or she's this, or she's that, those are gifts. And nobody's criticizing those emotions we used when we closed that $1 million deal, are they? Nope. It's like, oh, that's great. They don't care how you did it, but you used those emotions that you also sometimes in the workforce get criticized for. So I think we're at this amazing, apex in time where we as women get to show the world what we're really made of, and show them in love, and show them in a way that they can understand. I feel that the women's movements of the past have been somewhat tainted with anger and resentment for being held down. Granted, I wasn't alive, so I don't know if that was really the case. And we have to thank them for the freedom that we have. But I think that we're in this beautiful moment where women that are strong, and women like you and I who want to show the world, it's not going to be easy to do it, but we can set this beautiful stage of, hey, here is the woman and here's what we have to offer. And when you bring the woman and the man together in business, you just have an explosion that's unreal, right? Because we have such different talents, but when you mix them, they're amazing. And so I think that's what you're talking about, that struggle that you've been going through. But as another woman, I thank you for staying strong and for doing it, because I know it's not easy. It happens to me a lot, and I'm just like, dude, this is hard. It's hard, right?
But
well,
let me see, can I just say one thing to that?
Please.
And so, Alicia, you showing up and supporting the goddess energy, I want to say thank you to you for doing it, because what I see is that we need, yes, more women and more men to be their full self. That's really what it is. If you don't like the glam and the beauty thing, if that's not your thing, I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying it was a part of me that I couldn't put on the back burner, because that would have been denying a part of myself. I do love glam. I do love beauty. And what we're looking for now in our leaders are the integrators. Because it used to be that if you had access to information, that meant you were a thought leader. So people with a PhD, or if they were a doctor, those were the ones who were most revered in our society because they had access to the universities and the professors and the scholastic education, and academia had its time for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because our phone gives you access to every single bit of information you could ever need or want, it's in your pocket. It's no longer about information. In fact, we're in information overload. Data and information is flying at us faster than we can keep up with it or comprehend it. And so now our thought leaders are the integrators, the ones who can take all the pieces and all the information and integrate it and then distill it. That's what we're looking for. And Alicia, that's who you are.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm just listening to you and I'm like, she's right. She's right. She's right. Because you know how you find breadcrumbs and you're trying to connect the dots, and this whole school thing, it's been going on for a while, and I could see it, coming to an end. And I was curious, okay, I know that we have Google, we have all these things now, you don't need it. And I think you're right. It's the coming together. That's the new thought leader. It's the person who can connect the dots and show us, hey, this is where we're going. How phenomenal. And I think that's also, yeah, it's like, oh, we're here. And it's also a little scary, right? That's a big responsibility to put pieces together for people, because it's like, whoa, man, I hope that I'm right. But I think that that's where, understanding that there's a higher power out there. And if you can be in alignment, it's working through you, and it's the gifts that you give. So
exactly.
What a phenomenal way to put it. Andrea, I'm going to have to go back and clip the things that you said and save them.
Yay.
Okay, I totally sidetracked, and I've been doing that this entire time with you. So I do want to do a quick time check with you. How is your time, and are you able to go longer, or should we?
Yeah,
okay,
I'm good. There are so many things too in my mind where I'm like, oh yeah, we got to talk about that.
Go back and, oh, good.
And the thing about the integrator is, no, you don't have to have it all figured out. In fact, the first book that I ever wrote about weight loss and fitness, in many ways, that book is way more helpful to millions of people than by the time I was on my 20th book. Because I had gone so far along in the journey that what I was writing about and what was interesting to me on the 20th book would never have reached the audience that first book reaches. And so leave, if I'm gluten-free, but I would say leave the breadcrumbs along the way, because you are integrating. And as you integrate, you want to share it with humanity. You want to reach back over your shoulder and say, here's a ball of light. I hope it helps you. I hope you get here faster. Why do you have to struggle? Because I've already done the struggle. And if I can help to facilitate the awakening and eliminate the struggle on the planet with even one human soul, isn't that worth it?
Oh, girl, the goosebumps have just been permanent on this one. But yes, so I'm the older of three sisters, and I have two after me. And my youngest sister, who I just adore, she's in med school right now, is going through a little bit of a struggle, and one that I mean, it seems like so many of us have been through. And I remember how I handled it, in my early 20s. And I look at her, and as I've grown as an individual, I've always done that. Like, hey, let me share with you, because she's so eager and hungry to learn. And I'm watching her handle this scenario, and I just have to tell her, I'm like, you are just such a badass dude. Look at this scenario. Look how I handled it. Look how you handled it. We have the same genes, but look how much you can grow and how much further you can go if you have somebody's shoulders to stand on. And I think that as women, and here I'll get all philosophical with it, but I think as women, we have for eons been in competition with each other, because the only way for us to survive was to get the best man. That's it. You got the best man for the genes, you got the best man for the money. And so no matter how much I loved my fellow woman, she was my competition to a good life. And it's just not that way anymore. But breaking those genes and those things that have been passed down for generations in ourselves, to realize that, what I accomplish has no bearing on what you've accomplished. And you can be a huge, extreme, amazing, badass person, and it doesn't make me look any smaller, right? And that is my mission. I'm like, please let me show these amazing women to the world and show other women who are on their journey that they're willing to give you their shoulders to stand on. We're here to help, and we want to. And I think that that's the beauty of where we are in life right now. Like, you're just so willing to dump all of this hard-earned knowledge that you have and give it to anyone who's listening. And I think it's new. Like, I think this desire to do this has not been around that long. So I definitely commend you for I think it's on the cutting edge. I think it goes against what's been ingrained in our DNA with other women, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought this up because, I actually had an experience where my husband left me for my best friend, right? And it was everything in me that got triggered, my fear, I'm unlovable, I'm not worthy, what's wrong with me? And once I got through all of that healing and I realized, okay, it has nothing to do with me. It's totally about him. This is his choice and his journey and actually his insecurity that needed to go find a new woman. But once I got through all of that, I had a choice. I was like, okay, I go one way or the other. Either I never trust another woman again, right? Because here is the closest woman to me who betrayed me at the deepest level anyone could betray someone. So either I never trust another woman again, or I'm going to do everything in my power to lift women up. Because how in the world were we competing over the same man? It was 2015 when I got my divorce. How could this still be happening? What is going on in the planet? And I remember so many times where I would tell her, start a business, invest in yourself. And she believed that she needed a man to take care of her. And I saw her doing that with other men. But I was like, okay, well, that's her thing. You should start a business. You should invest in yourself. I never thought that it would be my husband that she came after. But when that happened, I don't blame her. I blame society. I blame our culture for every time they tell a girl, oh, you're so lucky, you're pretty. That means you're not going to have to work hard. Oh, you don't need to be good in math. You're never going to use math. And like all of these things that are ingrained, and we're brainwashed to believe that girls are somehow less intelligent, less powerful, and don't have control over their own choices of how they want their life to play out. And so that's the effort that I'm now putting out there. I'm shifting society so that no women ever compete over the same man again.
Yeah, and it's just like you said, they think that that's what they have to do, but we're free. I'm like, oh, guys, we're free. And when I was talking about earlier that I don't even think the world knows what to do with us, I don't even think we're quite sure what to do with us. I don't think we even fully comprehend what we as women as a whole are capable of. And so educating that in the next generation and the generation that's just coming up, it's going to be so important because men have had that for eons, right? They've always been the entrepreneur. They've always been the leader. They've always done all of these things. And if you look at a group of men, in general, when there's a competition, they use it to like, either they're happy for their dude, right? They're like, oh, he's a badass. And they're going to go celebrate together. Or they just use it to propel themselves forward. They don't take it as I'm less because he accomplished. And so they just so quickly move forward and do the things that have been ingrained in them for so long. It's time for us to learn, hey, ladies, you could do it, and it just takes effort, but it takes also understanding your gifts. And so I think that there's such a huge need for women who are accomplishing and are on that front edge to remember to turn around and reach backwards and be like, hey, come on, here's what I found, or here's what I did. men, I just don't think need it as much. And I'm sorry, I love you guys. I have so many amazing male mentors that I am personally so grateful for, but they've gotten a lot of help. I'm like, all right, it's girls' time. Like, we need to really focus on this if we want our society to move forward as a whole, right? It's so lopsided right now. And I think women like you and like I and the other women that we know, we can do this together. And so I'm just super excited to see. I think in 10 years when we look back, it's going to be a whole different terrain. So I'm looking.
Absolutely. Well, I love that you are using your voice, your platform, your brilliance to lift women up, to inspire women to go for their dreams and share their gifts. And I will tell you that what used to be the struggle of the beginning of my career, and when I say beginning, I mean like, you know, the first 10, 15 years or so, it's like, you know, because people were like, what do you mean you're a marketer? Or you mean you're here to get a husband, right? It's like, no, I'm actually a marketer. I'm here like in these high level masterminds because I'm into business. I'm into marketing. I'm not just the face of my company, but I'm also the business development and the CEO behind the scenes. And so, you know, all that resistance for years and even decades, there's been a shift. There has been a huge global shift where we are now craving feminine energy. And so what used to be this like resistance, now I see men opening up doors of possibility, because every conference, every seminar, we need to have women speakers, we need to have women MCs, we need more women voices. And so the trailblazers, you know, Alicia and I are telling these stories, but they will be obsolete. We won't even remember a time when you know, every movie had like 6 male characters and then the one hot chick. It's like, we're going to be told our stories will be included because our voices are desperately needed on the planet right now. That's the shift that's happening. It's going to balance.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. And it's, for me, it's so encouraging, but it's like, okay, ladies, we need to step it up, right? We've had a chance, and now it's like, hey man, if you want that, go get it, because it is there. And just like you were saying, they want women. And that's kind of what I alluded to earlier. I've had amazing male mentors. I feel that the men in my life have been some of the most supportive, you know? I mean, granted, I've had some bad experiences like all of us women have, but vice versa, right? They've had some bad experiences too. But I think in general, the men are searching for the women who are willing to stand up and do the work. So it's really important that as, you know, a team and as women who are trying to push this forward, we have those women coming up behind us, growing and learning and chomping at the bit to get it done, because you can only talk so much, you have to back it up. And that's what I think I'm trying to show women very quickly is, hey, here's how you back it up, right? And so I'm curious, out of your books that you've written, if there was an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur who was just on her, you know, beginning of her journey, do you have a book that you would recommend that you actually wrote?
Oh, wow. Well, my latest book, it just came out.
This one, which I am so excited about. We're going to have it in book club.
Yay!
Yay! Yeah, I'm so excited to read that. I told my husband about it. I was like, I cannot wait. I'm not going to cheat and read it early. I'm going to wait till we do it as a group.
Well, it's literally called Visionary Boss, the Next Edge Entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So everything we're talking about is my passion. And this is what this book is sharing my journey, my story, and what I would say are the most important assets to keep your vision alive. Because what we're seeing is that even the here and now reality can change in a minute, in a second, right? We woke up one day and there's a global pandemic. The night before, we were sleeping under a different paradigm of reality. And so the vision that is in you is your tool to see beyond the here and now into the future, into the possibility, and to prepare for it. Because I have had a shift in myself, and the fact that this is being released right at this time, like I've been writing this book now for I mean, it's been like 6 months, and the release of it coming now is because more of us need to trust our vision. Their solutions are needed now more than ever. Thought leaders are needed on the planet. We are starving for leadership. We are starving for solutions. And so this is about tuning in to, how am I going to see through chaos, confusion, madness, and get so tuned in to the vision that is coming through me so that I can bring it onto the planet.
So that's the book. And ladies, will be reading it in book club next month. So I am so excited, and I hope that you'll join us to just let everyone pick your brain out.
Oh my gosh. This will be my first book club, Alicia. I have to tell you, you've made my dreams come true. Oh. I've never had a book club, and there's nobody else who I could ever imagine doing it with except for you for the very first time. We're going to have so much fun.
I mean, we usually do. It just is, I say usually every single time. It's amazing. And we have a group of women in the book club who just, they're so hungry. And it makes me so happy because that's how I am. It's not like pulling teeth. They're reading these books, they're dissecting them. And then when we talk about it, we're having like grown-up hardcore conversations here, and I'm just so ecstatic about it. So getting your book in there and getting to learn the information that you've gleaned over the years, I'm super thrilled. I did not mean to go into that, but I did. So I am excited that you had it handy just to show everyone. I know the girls are going to love it. That being said, I kind of want to tie back into where you found the strength to overcome that portion of your journey that was so difficult, because I kind of veered way off my path. But I think that that's a really important thing to share with other women. Like, hey man, when it gets difficult, here's what I did. Might not work for you, but at least here's an idea.
Yes. So the biggest thing that I've been through several major chaotic events in my life, and I write about them in the book. I mean, the people say, oh, you must have had it always easy. It's like, no, nobody has it easy. Nobody shows up as a thought leader who chose the easy path. Okay.
That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that this particular situation with the divorce and the betrayal, it really brought me to my knees, like just deep humility, losing everything that I thought was supposed to make me happy, the identity, the success, and in even feeling that sense of I'm unlovable and I'm not worthy of love. I mean, it really rocked me to my core. And what got me out of it is believing I was going to write a book someday and that I was going to help other people. That's what got me out of it. Every day, I would say, why, God? What is this? What is this about? And the only message that made any sense to me was because you're supposed to help others. You're supposed to share. And that gave me one deeper breath of possibility. Oh, I can help others. Oh, it's not about me. Oh, and then that began to get deeper and deeper. And that is what got me out of bed, out of depression, out of complete financial disaster, out of low self-esteem, out of complete chaos. I mean, it was the lowest point of my life because the belief and the fantasy of, oh, my husband and I are going to live forever. Like the divorce was horrible, and every divorce is horrible, but it was particularly difficult because of the affair and because of the betrayal. And so I will say that that is how I built myself back up, breath by breath, is believing that someday I would write about it and that I could help somebody else.
Yeah, I feel like that is a common thread in who you are, is you want to give and help. And I guess you couldn't write 26 books if that wasn't the case, because that seems like that is your calling and your passion. And I'm so happy that you have, because I'm excited to see, like, what does this woman have? And you're so right. If you don't ever have heartache or suffer anything, then what do you really have to add to everyone else who is, right? Oh, my life is perfect and beautiful. It's like, well, how did you get through it? Well, it was perfect and beautiful. Like, okay, so where's the pain and the struggle, and how did you, surmount that? Can you tell me, and I feel like in everyone's, biggest pains, there's something that you have to let go of, something that you had to surrender to. What was that surrender moment in that scenario, or what was that big lesson that you took away from it and you were like, wow, I get it?
Oh my goodness. Whew. Well, okay, so I already talked about the fear, right? The fear was just, it was intoxicating. It was so big. It was like intoxicating because I no longer had a fantasy to pull, like, oh, someday when I'm married, and oh, someday when I have the cover of a magazine, or it was like I had everything. I had already achieved all the boxes that I thought were supposed to make me happy. And then when it was gone, it was this overwhelming fear and of like, where do I have to go from here? Nothing worked. So the fear, I mean, we've already talked about that, and to let that go. And I would say another surrender as well was believing that I love myself and that the love comes from within.
Mm.
And I just finally let go of having to have a perfect relationship or have a perfect partner, or being, allowing my identity to be seen in a relationship. And that was huge for me. I was a serial monogamist. I'd go from relationship to relationship to relationship. And so for 1 year, I said, I'm not in any relationship. I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm really going to do the work and be so good with myself. And I went to Europe. I actually went to Europe, and I traveled through Europe. I went to 7 countries, 16 cities, without any attachment to any person, place, or thing.
Wow.
And I would stay in the moment until the universe told me to leave.
Wow.
And I will be writing more books. I can write 10 books.
On that, I would assume.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just really getting just at peace with, who am I? I want to love myself without looking for any external validation.
Mm-hmm. That was such a huge experience for me too. I think that we get kind of taught self-love. I don't know how you feel about that, but I was like, I don't understand what people are talking about. You have to love yourself. What the fuck does that mean? Like, okay, I love myself, I guess. What are you trying to get me to understand here? And have you read The Power of Now? Have you read that book?
Yes, I've read it, I think, 3 times now.
Yeah, okay, so you get it. I'm just like, oh, it's already all there. That's this big, like, unveiling. It's already all there. All the love, all the joy, and all the peace is there. You just have to remember it and stay present. And that has been such a peaceful, it's almost a surrender, though, to accept that, or at least for me it was. It was like, whoa, you don't need anything. Anything outside of you is unnecessary. So, I mean, does it add, and is it, pleasant and wonderful? Yeah. But if all of it goes, are you still going to be okay? Right? And will you still be able to give and share? So what a lovely thing that you were able to pull out of that. I'm happy. And I'm sure I'll be excited to read about it in your books. I really want to hear about your journey that you went on, and how that, like, what made you decide, okay, this is what I need?
It was just a moment where I said, okay, I can't be around the story. Everybody was like calling me, and they're like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And like, even people calling me to ask if I was okay, I couldn't even deal, I was traumatized. I was literally dealing with trauma. And so I was like, I just have to get out of here. I have to go somewhere where nobody knows my name, my story, who I am, and I get to really figure out, like, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be to the world? How do I want to show up? Yeah. And I landed in London with no time, no agenda, no, just knowing, I was like, okay, I'm just on this adventure. And it truly was a life-changing experience, and a moment that every time I would get on a plane or a train or go to another city, I felt like my sense of self coming through. And it turns out I'm actually European at my heart.
Aren't we
And
all?
aren't we all? Yeah. I mean, the way that there's culture and romance and beauty and art and architecture. And, so I am European in my heart. And I got to just express that for really the first time by myself was very special.
Wow. Can I make a book request? Like your next one? I would love to just like have deep dive into that because that sounds phenomenal. I'm sure originally it didn't start out feeling phenomenal, but what an amazing way to just take the time that you needed. I admire that so much. You didn't
Yeah.
just stay there and let it suffocate and kill you and make you small. So good for you. Okay, I will finally start to wrap this up now that you've quenched most of my curiosity for today. Can you
planting little seeds?
I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna just kill you in one day. It's just gonna be questions. I'll pepper them. My last thing that I always like to ask is self-care. How do you, take care of those things when life gets just hard, demanding, things are kind of moving quickly? What are the things that you do that you're just like, hey, these are my go-tos?
Well, I am a yogini and I practice yoga. Yoga has been a part of my life for over 20 years. And if I don't practice yoga for a week, then things start to happen. My lower back starts to cramp, but most of all, my energy, I start to feel the negativity and the toxicity coming in and taking over my brain and my body. And so it is my ritual, it's my church, it's my spirituality, it's that deep me time with me where I go into my breath, my body. And I'm so grateful that I have that sacred practice because I actually feel like I get younger. I have more energy, I have more happiness, I have more enthusiasm for life. And when you go through traumatic experiences, like what I've been through, it's a self-healing catharsis. And it's also a place where you can play with trusting yourself, play with balance and play with your strength. And when you fall down, you laugh at yourself. And so it's a metaphor for life. It's a metaphor for putting yourself out of your comfort zone, because everything that I cultivate in my yoga practice, that's how I show up as an entrepreneur. Ooh. That's the lessons that I've learned through yoga is really how I show up as an entrepreneur and as a thought leader. So if you haven't brought yoga into your life, I definitely recommend that as my number one self-care. I'm also really big into baths. I take a lot of baths. And I make it a ritual, like Cleopatra, okay? So there's Epsom salts, and I turn on spa music, and I bubble baths and scented oils. So it's this environment that truly surrounds you like a goddess, like a queen, and you are pampering yourself. That's actually where I read. I read books in the bath. So, even if it's 15, 20 minutes at the end of the evening, then I'm able to read while also spa environment. And then on Sundays, I'll do a face mask and a hair mask, and I'll be in there for like 45 minutes. So it's like a ritual, a cleansing ritual. I love water. I have to live by the ocean. I drink tons of water. So water, self-care is all about fluid, getting your brain healthy, getting your body healthy, and your breath is your number one nutrient. So yoga breathing, practice breathing, deep breathing, and then the number two nutrient is water. If you can just flood your body with those two nutrients every single day, then you will never age. You'll feel amazing.
It's funny you say that. I know you're right too. My husband, I didn't realize, sometimes like when you get stressed out, you don't breathe deep. And then he was like, you're cutting oxygen off your head. How do you think that's going to work out for you? And I was just like, whoa, hey, shut up. Wait, you're right. I know, but shut up. And it's just really intriguing when you realize, whoa, I'm not breathing well. So, and it's such an easy thing to fix. It's like, okay, just be present. Take a few really big, deep breaths. So yeah, and the water. Those are all great ones. So thank you for sharing those. I finally am about to wrap this up, but I keep saying, I'm getting there. But as we wrap this up, is there maybe one thought that you would like to leave our listeners with? Maybe something I didn't ask you about or you feel would greatly impact others?
Wow. Well, we have covered a lot. You're an incredible interviewer.
Oh, you're very sweet.
Seriously, this has been great. What I want to leave the viewer with is trusting your gifts and knowing that your gifts are special and that they are in you to be shared. And if you have a desire to express yourself, share your gifts, leave a legacy for your life, then I just want you to know that I believe in you and I see you in your fullest expression. And I'm holding that vision for you. And even if you can't see it in yourself right now, I see it. I see your greatest possibility and your greatest potential shining. And when you just surrender to that, even if you can say, okay, well, I don't see it, but if she can see it, then maybe there's some truth there. If the more you can trust and surrender, then the more it will shine through. And so we are all raising the vibration by shining onto one another. You know, a light of a candle lights another candle, but the first candle doesn't get any dimmer. We're all lighting each other. And so by you sharing your light and your gifts, you'll never know who you could reach and who you can touch. And that light coming through you I believe that's why we're all here. I believe we are here to connect and to share our gifts with each other.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I agree too. I love that you shared that. Thank you. And that's such a pretty analogy because you're so right. Your light doesn't ever get taken away from. You can't take away from it. It's light. So beautiful. I do actually have a few questions for you from our Q&A. That people submitted. So I've got two, and then I'll check also our live feed and see if there's anything else. But the first question was from Crystal, and she asked, what are the key points that you can give about marketing a book?
Okay. So marketing a book actually starts before the book is written. And this is probably the biggest mistake that I see authors making is they either self-publish or they go with a publisher and they spend all of this time and energy on the book, and they write the book, they struggle with the book, they edit the book. Finally, the book is ready and they say, okay, who wants to buy it? Who wants to sell it? Well, if you're trying to market the book after the book has already been written and published, it's too late. You've missed the mark. You've missed the market. And so what I do before I ever write a book or before I ever have a client think about what book they're going to write is we do the marketing first. We do the marketing first by analyzing the market, understanding what is the market looking for, what is the market seeking, what is the market searching for. Now we can take your content, your gifts, your vision, and we put it into a box that the market will already be looking and searching for. And so when we publish, 90 days, hopefully, we're done, we release the book, and we don't have to try to convince somebody or force somebody to buy it because the market's like, oh, I've been looking for this. I've been searching for this. So you are so tuned in with the market before you ever start to write a book. That is the number one marketing tip I could give you.
Oh, girl, when you said it, I was just like, genius. That makes so much sense because you could see how someone would do it the other way. And then, of course, that's the logical way. But if you don't know, how would you know, right? And no one like tells you this stuff. So what a great question. And then, of course, a phenomenal answer. Thank you for that one. The second question that was on there was, what was the first book that you published besides your own?
Ooh, that's a
Do
good,
you remember?
interesting.
You're like, it's
I
been
know,
a
I'm like,
while.
so let me think about that. Hold on, it's coming to me. It's coming to me. Okay. It was a beautiful book. It was a doctor. She was a diabetes expert, and she had a solution for diabetes. And whenever we publish health books with doctors, we have to be very careful about what we say, because you can't say things like cure or heal. So I came up with so remember the marketing first, right? I knew that diabetes is a huge keyword. People are searching for diabetes on the internet, millions and millions and millions of searches a month. Okay, tons of people are looking for that. So I knew that we have to have the word diabetes in the book title because people are searching for it. But we can't say like cure or all of that. So I came up with the title, Turn Diabetes Around.
Ooh, I love it.
And that was the first book that I published for somebody else other than myself. And that book, she went on to become, oh my God, it's a beautiful story. She published the book, all of her patients started talking about it. And then her medical school ended up making it a textbook. They
Get out.
purchased it and all of the future people who graduate from that medical school, it's now required reading to read her book on diabetes.
Wow. How awesome. Well, that's just phenomenal. Like, oh, these
Yeah.
questions are better than mine. I'm getting all sorts of good. They're like surprises for me because I'm like, oh, I didn't think about this one. That is
But that's a perfect example of giving the market exactly what they're already searching for, right? It's like she didn't come up with, whenever people come up with some clever, or they make up a new word or
yeah.
something, okay, it's like, fine. If you're Michelle Obama and you already have a
You can.
following, maybe you can get away with that. But if nobody knows who you are, and if you're creating your thought leadership, you need to meet the market where they're at. You need to give them what they are already seeking and searching for. And then that's a perfect example of her medical school is like, wow, not only is this cool because you're a graduate, but it's actually great information.
Right.
So it happens all the time. The stuff that happens when we publish books that are aligned with the market, it's amazing. I could go on and on.
Oh, well, we're going to have to go on and on over coffee and then maybe dinner when I come visit and then coffee after. We'll just stay up all night. We'll drink all the wine and then we'll switch to coffee. Just like, okay. Andrea, I have to thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing all of your authentic truths. It has been such an honor to have you here on the League of Goddesses interview series. And I look so much forward to just watching you continue to be your badass self. And I cannot wait to read your book, as well as the new ones that you will publish. I'm so looking forward to the Europe journey. I'm like, oh, I'm going to need to see that one. So I hope that happens soon. I wanted to tell our listeners, though, if they would like to connect with you, can you tell them what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yes, you can reach me at my website. You could go to beverlyhillspublishing.com, and there's an application there. If you're interested in publishing a book, then you can go through the application process and see if we're the right fit for your publishing needs. And then if you just want to connect with me personally, I'm on all of the socials. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I'm actually about to release my new branding website at andreaalbright.com. So I'm not sure when this interview is going to be published, but probably very soon we're going to have a new website up there. And I have a gift. It's a $100,000 book launch strategy and implementation guide. Wow. So it's how to make 6 figures from your book if you want to go get that gift at andreaalbright.com.
You are so sweet. Thank you for offering that to all of our listeners, and I will make sure that the League knows, and we'll also make sure that there are links to everything when we publish this interview. So for all of those of you who have joined us live, this live event, thank you so much. And for those of you who will watch it in the future, we hope that you enjoy it. Please visit my website, aliciacovey.com, to sign up for an invitation to the next League of Goddesses interview. And until next time, everyone, live an extraordinary life.